Hey, how's everybody doing today? So I've got a couple of uh, concerns, some things that I wanted to address, a couple of issues that have come to my attention through this whole process in dealing with this ridiculous government, for lack of better terms. These so-called public servants that clearly don't know what their jobs, what their roles are that they're supposed to be performing, how to perform those duties. It's a completely perverted system. It's been perverted so far from its initial intentions and reasons that it was put in place, to begin with. So it's come to my attention going through this whole process that there is fraud uh, that's going on in the courts with the police officers slash law enforcement conspiring with the courts. They're committing trust fraud actions, as well as extortion and racketeering and a whole slew of other crimes. Um, it's quite mind-boggling how out of control and blatant it is, and really just how perverted it is. When these people perform these so-called duties, and they're supposed to protect and serve the community, the public, and people, but they don't. They serve themselves, and I'll explain to you how. So, if you're not aware, there's a thing called the straw man. That's what it's been coined as, or termed as. When we were quote unquote born here, when our parents basically register us with the state and the federal government, uh, create the birth certificate or the certificate of live birth. When through that whole process, what happens is the government creates a trust. It's known as the Cest KV Trust, that is designed to benefit you or each of us that have this trust set up through the process of what's known as birth. So what happens in the courts, because of these frivolous charges and accusations, and by threat of violence using guns and threats on people's life and property, using fear mongering to force people to comply, these police officers create these frivolous, fraudulent charges that actually don't even apply to men or women. They technically can only be applied to the trust itself. And being that each of us are the beneficiary of our trust, we're not to be held accountable or charged or forced to pay any money or restitutions as the beneficiary if there's anything of that nature that comes out of the trust. And the trustee, either the United States Treasury, or if there's any pseudo trustee or any trustee that was assigned by any of us, the beneficiary, which is what happens through this process. See, they trick people going through the court procedures, the proceedings. They trick people into giving them jurisdiction and acceptance for their offers, and so they create a trustee beneficiary relationship and take full advantage of that. And because most people, and even I myself, when I was initially going through this whole process, didn't realize what was truly going on and that I'm the beneficiary, uh, what they're doing is they're tricking people into, because of ignorance, which doesn't make it right, into giving them jurisdiction and giving them that trusteeship so they can make decisions and pull monies out of the trust to cover debts that are accrued through the court system, to securitize the bonds that are created off the back of these so-called charges and cases and court proceedings, which are sold on the market, on the stock market. That's how these organizations are making money. If you look at the word bench, where in a courtroom, supposedly that's what they call the that upper desk area where the man or woman in the black dress sits and makes all these administrative decisions. That thing's called a bench. Well, if you look at what the word bench is, if you look at synonyms of the word bench, it also means bank, as well as some other interesting terms. But if you take that into consideration, the word bank and bench being synonymous, essentially the quote unquote judge or judges are bankers. And what they are doing through this process is tricking people into thinking they did something wrong and they need to face the music and let justice do its thing, or whatever the ideas are these days. But what actually happens, because we don't have access to true judicial process, we can't actually really get anything accomplished in the courts, because they're strictly administrative courts. They are military tribunals, administrative tribunals that are set up to they're set up under maritime admiralty law, which is commercial law, law of commerce, and essentially they treat people as products, or cattle, or chattel. That's another term you may have heard or come across, chattel. We are nothing more to them than a product sitting on a shelf. That's why they have no problem stripping us of our rights and throwing us in a cage, or tricking us into accepting that because we don't know any better. But it would be no different than if I or anyone perfect timing, if I or anyone tricked a handicapped man or woman, someone who's mentally challenged or retarded, or whatever the term you want to use that you're comfortable with these days. It would be no different than tricking someone like that, that doesn't have the capability at that point in time, for whatever reason, whether it's physical or genetic, or because of whatever the reasonings are. It is unethical to take advantage of someone's ignorance and trick them. It's fraud. It is, quite frankly, I mean, as I stated, extortion and racketeering. There's securities violations because of the bonds being created, all the financial activity on the trust. The trust fraud action in and of itself is a securities violation. These people acting in these roles, these so-called public servants, they claim that they are giving themselves immunity because people are becoming aware of what they are doing, how they are really making a lot of money off of the populace, off of the community that they're supposed to be serving and protecting. We the people need true judicial process. We need true due process, according to how the Constitution has laid out and is supposed to bind these people when acting in these roles, that it limits what they are allowed to do by law. But because they're so used to getting away with their own law violations because they've created their own immunity, now they are just completely out of control. And whether they realize it or not, it doesn't make a difference because ignorance is no excuse when you break the law. Um, if you are knowingly causing harm to someone, if you are knowingly threatening someone's life on their property, uh, I mean, not only is it a trespass in multiple ways, but aggravated assault, attempted murder, or at least attempted manslaughter, aggravated manslaughter, whatever the term is. Um, there's so much there that they are actually uh, there's so many law violations there that they're actually committing because they are the actual person, because they're employed by the city, by the police department, or employed by the city, contracted by the I don't know if I said that right, employed by the police department, contracted by the city. So they are technically a person. If you look up the definition of the word person, person is not a private man or even a private man or woman in let's say in the public area. The only time that a man or woman can become a person is when they are acting in a role for a corporation, when they are uh, essentially collecting a check, when they're working, when they're on the job, whatever you want to call it. That's when they're considered a person. An Uber driver, an Amazon driver, um, a parts delivery driver, truck drivers. All of these people in these roles are persons. But see, in this situation here, it's a perversion of the truth because the persons are uh, charging men and women with violations that only persons can be held accountable for. The only time that a man or woman can be held accountable for an action is when it causes harm to another, and the victim is the only one that has the authority to bring the suit, not a third party, not a non-witness. All this thing about attorneys and the bar, and that is all being used. These organizations are being used to pervert. I thought I muted that. These organizations are being used to pervert the rule of law here in our courts, so that way we can't actually have any true judicial process or procedure. We can't get any actual remedy, and they can run around like tyrants and treat people like garbage when they want to, especially people that they don't particularly like. Ignore their responsibilities and duties and obligations set forth by the law, by the legislature. This isn't my how should I say? When I talk about their obligations and their duties, I'm going by what the law states. That was established not by me but by the legislature. They are obligated. These public servants are obligated to follow that. Period. When they don't do that, there's repercussions for that because they are responsible for their own actions. Now, they may have found a way to manipulate the courts to prevent a man like myself from getting remedy because I'm cut off from judicial procedure in that sense. Uh, they treat all cases like basically an administrative tribunal. I filed a civil lawsuit and it was dismissed without a single hearing or rebuttal of evidence or affidavit. Um, Now, there's other ways around this, and I'll get to that at some point here in the near future. But I want you all to understand what is going on. I have no problem with these people in acting in the roles that they are in, or that they are given, or what have you. If they are actually benefiting the people, benefiting the community, what I do not accept is this whitewashed facade, this thin blue line facade that uh, they hide behind. People tout them as heroes because they risk their lives every day. I used to think that too, but in a lot of ways, they create the situations themselves. They push the issue. They in many ways they escalate, not de-escalate. They create situations that allow them to use their firearms. Because you think what you will about all that, but yeah, this is outrageous. It's outrageous what they are doing, and it's all being allowed because people don't know the truth. People don't know the truth about how the system works. Most people, like myself before 2018 and moving to this area and experiencing these out of control public servants, uh, most people don't find themselves in court and getting hemmed up by law enforcement. I certainly never have before this because I don't have issues with law enforcement. I don't do ridiculous things to get myself hemmed up with law enforcement. It wasn't until moving here and attempting to get some noise issues addressed that still to this day these persons have never properly or professionally adequately performed any duties to address the issues. They've done nothing but make excuses, find information about me that they can use against me, that they can weaponize, use my frustration and weaponize it against me after dealing with this for this amount of time. At this point, honestly, I think this is just for me. It's more aggravating dealing with these people than it is dealing with the noise itself that disturbs me at this property that I've been complaining about, that they are required by law and obligated to address. But they make excuses, and because they have immunity, they can do whatever they want, and for the most part, they can get away with it. But I'm telling you right now, they picked the right one when they found me, when they chose not to do the right thing and come at me and attack me and induce panic in my life at this property and make it to where at times I don't feel safe being here because of the activities of these people and how many times I've had my life threatened simply because they don't want to do their job. Or my complaints just aren't important enough for them to perform. They have more important things to handle, like sitting in parking lots or arresting disorderly conduct. people, so to speak, because that was mostly what they were bringing in when they had me locked in a cage because I called them for their service, asked them to do their jobs. It was mostly just people getting in arguments at restaurants or at a bar, and next thing you know, they get arrested. But see, this goes back to, brings kind of full circle. This is what they do. See, they create these frivolous little charges, traffic infractions, disorderly conduct, things where there's no injured party. There's no other party that's a quote unquote plaintiff according to the court. It's the city of Zanesville or the or Muskingum County or the state of Ohio. That's the plaintiff that the prosecuting attorney is acting on behalf of as a representative of. There's no actual victim. There is no case. This is fraud. And what makes it even worse is not only is it fraud on its face, because it's not a true suit under common law. This is all military tribunal. They are ignoring constitutional law. Not only is it fraud on its face, but the securities that are created, the bonds that are created that are securitized by the assessed KV trust, that each man and woman has, anyone that has a social security number or their trust. You see, you don't have these things. You as the beneficiary, you're just the beneficiary. The driver's license is not your driver's license. That's not you. That's the trust's driver's license. That is essentially that's the document identifying you as the beneficiary of that trust, and it tells identifying information about what the trust is. It gives, in most cases, the social security number, but in all cases, the all capital letter name, first, middle, and last. That's identifying information to identify who the beneficiary, or excuse me, what trust the beneficiary is tied to. So, when these frivolous charges are created, people are, have their freedom taken from them, have their safety and lives threatened, their health threatened because of the conditions in some of these places that they keep people, that I've experienced, that I've been in myself. That it's inhumane, and it's outrageous. But these people are so disconnected from reality, and I don't know. I guess maybe at this point they're soulless. I mean, it would have to take someone completely soulless to do this to other people and think that it's okay. I mean, for crying out loud, I cannot imagine the type of karma that they are building up for themselves and how many lifetimes they're going to have to be recycled to work out this karma that they are building up. Wow, it's really sad. It's really sad that they're deceived, if they really are ignorant of what's going on, that they're that deceived to think that they are doing what's right. They're doing their civic duty. Anybody that gets to a prosecuting attorney level, a quote-unquote judge, anybody that's in these positions, they should know better. They should full well know what is going on and how the system is being ran, how the thing works, how they're creating the bonds, how the trust fraud action is actually being perpetrated. They should be fully aware of that. They have no excuse. I'm sure a lot of them will say, "Oh, well, we just do what we're told." Like most people these days, we just do what we're told. We just want to keep our paycheck. We just want to do what we're told and, keep our head down and stay out of sight and just get by. We can just keep scraping by. That's a coward in my book. someone who uses their position of so-called authority, that uses people's ignorance against them, causes harm to them because of their ignorance. That's unconscionable. I mean, what kind of human being? What kind of? I mean, they just aren't. They aren't human anymore. They cannot be human anymore. People that do this sort of thing to other people, lock them in a cage against their will, hold them there without telling them anything, not not knowing, the people not knowing when they're going to get released, having responsibilities to take care of, and at times not even be able to make a phone call to get a hold of other people that might be able to take care of those responsibilities, and being completely stressed out because they don't care. All they want to do is squeeze the blood out of the turnip, or if that's the right way to say it. That they are, they're just not human anymore. And I'll be damned if I'm going to give anybody the title hero, period. I will give credit where credit's due. There are some of these officers, some of these public servants that actually do a decent job, and they do help people. From time to time, they actually rescue people. It's not all about, death and destruction and threatening people's lives and causing harm and threats of violence. But it is mostly. So I'm not going to overlook the overwhelming amount of evidence of this criminal activity, this racketeering and extortion. There is more than enough evidence now to constitute a RICO Act violation, which, if you're not aware of what that is, it's the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act that the federal government established. Essentially, it was originally established to go after, like mafia type organizations, gangs, that sort of thing. But in this situation here, aren't they essentially no different than a gang or a mafia? I mean, just because they claim to be, from the city or part of the government, doesn't make them exempt. The actions are the same. If a group of people wear the same clothes, that go out and cause violence and harm to people, are considered a gang, and a violent gang at that, certainly this is no different. But for some reason we give them a pass. We accept it. Because I think for the most part, it's subconsciously, at least this is what I told myself for a long time, that I thought, well, if I ever find myself in need of service, if I ever find myself in need of assistance or help, whether it's an emergency or to deal with a noise issue, a barking dog, or whatever, to have them act as the mediator to address the issue and to either silence the noise, get the dog's owner to silence the animal, put it inside, or whatever the situation case may be, so it's not barking constantly all night and disturbing the neighborhood and the peace. That's what they're there for. Not to run around like vigilantes and paramilitary groups that are completely militarized. I mean, not only their gear that they have, but their actions, their tactics are uh, very, very military based. And to a degree, it makes sense. There are some of their duties that require that, but it seems all too often that things escalate to a point to where, well, they get to use their firearms. If not to actually use them on somebody, at least brandish them and point them in somebody's face and have enough of them in somebody's face that, well, they might feel like they're already dead and just waiting to hear the bang. Uh, but maybe not everybody has those types of dare I say reactions. But knowing as a veteran, someone who has served myself in combat, who knows the seriousness of having a weapon pointed at me, and to realize that it was all completely unlawful. They had no authority to do what they've done. And I'll get to this last issue here, and then I gotta go. But here's here's three things that you need to remember. If any of you listen to this ever find yourself in a courtroom, there's three things that you need to remember. Look these terms up, research them, understand them, or comprehend them, I should say. Most people say understand, but they don't really know what that means. So comprehend them. So first, when you step into a court as a beneficiary, as a man or woman, so as you don't give them the illusion of jurisdiction or authority over you, you tell them that you are there by special appearance. And there's two other terms that you want to add to that. This is how I say it. I say that I'm here by special appearance, in proprio persona, and sui juris. Now those are three terms in total that you need to look up. You look up what it means to make a special appearance in a court. You need to comprehend and look up what the term in propria persona means and how that's used, as well as sui juris. These are three very powerful terms that, when used correctly in the courts, destroy any inkling of jurisdiction or authority that they might have or think that they have over you or anybody in that position. Now, that's not all you have to do or comprehend. There's a lot more to the story, but that is the tip of the iceberg, if you will. Once you comprehend those three things, the rest will begin to make sense. So, I want you all to understand this. To truly be free, we need to know who we are. If you don't know who you are, you will be tricked and you will be in bondage forever. So it's time to know the truth and let the truth set you free. You owe it to yourself. So God bless you all. Keep y'all heads up. Stay positive. And let's be the change that we want to see. Let's stop being a a cheerleader, armchair quarterback, backseat driver, whatever you want to call it. Let's be the change that we want to see. Let's do what we need to do to make things right, to make this place better for us all. Period. So, God bless you all.